What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, and today we're talking about some news from Honda about their new 975 Hornet and what that actually means, because we got a whole bunch of new specs about this machine, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little disappointed. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so as we dive into this video, I think it's important for me to note first and foremost that back in the day, I used to own myself a 2007 Honda 919, and that was basically my favorite motorcycle of all time. It's the one that I consider, the one that got away. It was the one motorcycle I really wish I never got rid of, and when I was working at Yami Noob, we had a 919 that he actually bought back from the winter from when it was a giveaway motorcycle. And we worked on, rebuilding it and refreshing it and making it all nice. So the 919 is a platform I'm super duper familiar with. Really, it's one of those cult classic motorcycles where if you know, and the minute you ride one, you start to understand why they're so cool. A lot of people have been saying that bikes like the Z900 or the Z900 RS are sort of spiritual successors, but I don't really think so. So that just gives you an idea of where I'm coming at this story with. So let's dive on into the facts. So the first thing to note about this whole story is that Honda, a couple of months ago, I think, I don't remember exactly when, I'll have it on screen, dropped these really interesting looking, I don't know what you would even call them. I guess they're concept drawings for this motorcycle. We haven't actually seen real renderings of the bike. Everything are these hand-drawn style of images that show sort of the direction that they want to take this motorcycle in. And at the time when I first saw them, I was like, okay, Honda is just trying to make a Duke. In fact, in my notes for this video, I don't have it listed as the Hornet. I have it called the Honduke, because I thought it was kind of funny. But basically what we're looking at is we're looking at Honda literally copying the style of a KTM 890 or 1290 Duke. It's almost shameful in how close they are. I'll show the pictures side by side with the actual KTMs, and it's pretty shocking how close they are. Let me just say that. Now, recently, at the beginning of this month, Honda dropped some specs on this motorcycle, some things to expect. The first thing they dropped was an engine displacement, that this bike was going to be around 750 cc's. New information now says that that engine is 755 cc's, so gained a couple there. But the most important thing to note is that this is a parallel twin with a 270-degree crank that is claiming 91 horsepower and about 55 foot-pounds of torque. So this motor, everything that we have from Honda says that it is heavily derived from the Africa Twin and Rebel 1100 engines. So it's that same single overhead cam. It's supposedly a little bit lighter, but at the end of the day, the weight that you're saving by going from single to, or going from double to single, it doesn't mean a whole lot when you talk about the construction of the motorcycle around it. And we'll get back to that in a second. So this motor is basically another Africa Twin derived motorcycle in Honda's lineup. Right now we have the Hawk, which is coming. We have the Rebel 1100, and obviously we have the Africa Twins. So there will be 4 motorcycles using a derivation of this same engine, which is a little bit of a bummer, but well, I mean, let's be real, it is a good engine, so I understand why Honda wants to put it in a lot of stuff. Now, some other specs that we have on this bike, we have a wheelbase of 55.9, 56 inches, which is very, very similar to the GSX R1000, which is good. That means that this is going to be a nice short wheelbase motorcycle. It's going to handle probably pretty darn well. You know, longer wheelbases tend to be a little bit more lazy. But this one looks like it's going to be a fairly, you know, agile, darty, naked bike. Some size information, 419 pounds, exactly the same weight as the MT-09, which, again, a little concerning. We'll come back to that in a second. And then size dimensions, basically, it's somewhere between an MT-07 and a MT-09 Street Triple. So we're looking at a motorcycle generally that is middleweight sized with a little under middleweight power. I consider middleweights to be anything north of around 100 horsepower to like 120. That's usually what I consider a middleweight. And then everything under that is kind of unclassed, in my opinion, because calling a MT-07 a middleweight is a little silly. So, you know, the middleweight term is a little bit of it's too useless. It's too broad to be useful. Okay, now, let's set aside the fact that this is very obviously not a Hornet. We'll come back to that in a second. Let's talk about these specs relative to the market that we're in. We have a lot of parallel twin 270-degree crank motorcycles coming out right now. We don't have any information on whether or not the Suzuki SP650 or whatever the new Suzuki naked bike is, but we're expecting that to be very similar to this. You know, I think I said about 100 horsepower to maybe like 110, something like that. We don't know if it's a 270-degree crank yet, but that means that Suzuki is joining the parallel twin game. The 270-degree crank. We've got the 180s from Kawasaki. We've got 300s from CF Moto and Chinese companies. They tend to go with the 180-degree or the 360-degree crank. And then we've got a whole bunch of parallel twins in Europe, from KTM to Triumph. I mean, they're everywhere. Royal Enfield even has parallel twins. So we have yet another parallel twin, and this one wants to play in the middleweight category, but it's only making 90 horsepower, which means that this is going to have the Honda problem, where the motorcycle is going to be overpriced for its specs. It's going to not fit well into a category. Generally, it's going to be a good motorcycle, but it's going to be one of those things where not a lot of people are going to pick one up because it just doesn't make a lot of sense with regard to the other offerings. I'm thinking about bikes like the CB650R, which is their 650cc inline-4 naked bike that's making like 85 horsepower and 45 foot-pounds of torque or something like that. That thing's almost $10,000. That's a spicy meatball when you consider that you can get a Gixxis 750, or you can go with older inline 4s, or you can go with other naked bikes that aren't inline 4 packages that have more power for the same price. I mean, Honda has a real problem where they make motorcycles that are really good, but that are overpriced and underpowered. Admittedly, they're not as bad about it as Harley Davidson is, but, you know, they're the Harley of the big four. The only thing they really have is reliability, which, yeah, sure, okay. But do you need another inline 4 naked bike from Honda, or do you need another parallel twin naked bike from Honda when you have so many other options that are established? Especially when they're so blatantly copying the KTM style. just go get an old 790. It'll be cheaper used than this is new. It'll have the same, if not more, features. Or just step it up and get an 890. Get the base model 890 and you'll have everything that this thing does. So again, my question is, do we need one of these? And I really don't think so. So let's go back to that original thing that I put aside, which is this is not a Hornet from Honda. It's just not a Hornet. I really wish they'd called it something else and instead badged the CB650 and the CB1000 as the Hornets. The 919 was a Super Hornet, technically, depending on your market, and the CB599, the 600 Hornet, that one was called the regular Hornet, and they should have just done the same thing. CB650R is Hornet, and CB1000R is Super Hornet, because they have a lot of very similar styling. And you know, aside from the new Hornet, the 750 looking a little waspy, it really doesn't call back to the old Hornets from the mid-2000s. In that sense, I kind of wish that the Hornet nameplate went the way of the Hurricane, where it just got retired, because, you know, it was one of these legendary motorcycles, and I don't want to see its legacy get watered down. And that's definitely the 919 simp talking. I'm completely capable of admitting that I have this reverence for the 919 because I owned one, and it's such a cool motorcycle, and it's really pretty. I don't think that this CB750A that they're calling it, I don't think it's gonna do it. I really don't, which is a bummer. But here's where I pass the question on to you guys. What do you guys think about this motorcycle? Do you think that Honda's actually going to price it aggressively versus the bigger middleweight naked bikes, or do you think it's going to be an expensive 650-ish cc motorcycle? That's kind of where I land. But do you guys care about this motorcycle? Did you even know it was coming? Because there's not a lot in Honda's fleet that I really care about anymore. You know, it really seems like the risk-taking Honda of old is gone, which is a big bummer, because they're one of the few manufacturers that made factory turbo bikes in the 80s. I want to see that Honda come back. Unfortunately, until then, I guess we're going to have another parallel twin 270-degree crank naked bike. So let me know your thoughts down below. While you're down there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to click the bell notification too, because YouTube does this weird thing where it just sort of slides my videos into your feed. If you actually want to see them as soon as they come out, the notification bell will make sure that you actually get notified when they come out. So you don't miss anything, because you wouldn't want to miss any. And for those of you who have stuck around to the very end, a little sneak peek, I'm actually working on a big research topic and a whole video on why parallel twins are so popular nowadays, because there's actually a lot going on with the parallel twin space, and I wanted to do a big old deep dive on it. And so I'm gonna try to shoot for the stars and make myself a little Fort 9 style video, and at the very least, if I fail, I will die in the vacuum of outer space amongst the stars. So until then, I will catch you guys in the next one.